What I want to talk about this week is how industry leaders and industry partners are working with school districts to help develop their programs to produce future-ready workers. Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Leena Saleh, the Edtech guru, where we explore all things Edtech and education related. All right, let's do this. This week, I want to focus on something a little bit different from what I've focused on in my previous episodes. I want to discuss a little bit about how industry leaders are partnering with schools to produce, in a sense, workers. In the previous world, in our pre-pandemic world, companies like IBM, Facebook, Google, and about 600 other companies have been partnering with programs called PTech. And what is PTech? PTech is the Pathway in Technology Early College High School. So that's what PTech stands for. IBM hosts about 220 PTech school partners worldwide. And the company is planning to expand the program into 150 schools in the US. Half of the company's total commitment of 300 by the year 2023. PTech was established, or this PTech IBM model was established in 2011, and it basically provides the opportunity for students at no cost from underserved areas to earn both their high school diploma and a 2-year associate's degree in a STEM field. So there's a lot of programs around the country that are doing this. They'll either partner up with a local college, let's say something like here in Austin, the Austin Community College, in Denver, the Front Range Community College. And so what students will do is they'll take their high school classes and take these early college classes. And in order to become an early college campus, you are typically from an underserved area. And more than half of those PTech schools, 55% of them are actually Hispanic, according to the data that IBM has. So in addition to that, they want to actually start focusing on providing mentorship. So a lot of other companies are actually doing that. There is the Women in Engineering. There's multiple different programs. There's a STEM ecosystem here in Austin, and they actually partner with STEM fields to provide mentorship for younger students, specifically girls in the STEM fields. So what has started to happen, we know, is that our students are not coming out future ready. So industry, instead of hoping and crossing their fingers that something is going to happen, what they actually have decided to do, they started to partner with these early college programs. And by doing that, these students come out with real world skills, an associate's degree, their high school diploma, and then now they're able to work directly at IBM. IBM does this here in Austin with their semiconductors that they have. They find that they have a lot of trouble with students actually coming out of high school now and wanting to do the hard work that's associated with being in these STEM factory. So by them partnering, they're actually providing experience and exposure for the students. And they're like, oh, well, if they've already put this much and invested this much in, then I want to continue to work for them in the future. And so they're kind of producing the old school model of, you would go in and you'd be prepared for factory work, but now preparing more for the technical side of things. They're not the only ones who do this as part of their program. They have different corporate partnerships with AT&T, Microsoft, Cisco, American Airlines. And so they created kind of like an ecosystem for these students. They've put it quite nicely when they said that they are not going to change the world alone. Any action that we do is brand agnostic in order to congregate people who want to identify with the action. It's not a marketing execution. So they're not trying to just market themselves solely, but they really are trying to give this exposure to students. Typically, the Hispanic and underserved areas, they are giving them some jobs that they can actually come out with some high-paying work at the end of this without going the traditional route of college. We know that many underserved students, it's hard for you to get into college. First of all, it's crazy expensive for just a normal family, right at the median household, to be able to go to college without having to pay millions and millions of dollars later on back, right? That's why the push for the political landscape right now is to be doing loan forgiveness. And just the cost that you come out with having from college just never actually repays itself, oftentimes for a really, really long time. I have friends who are lawyers and they're just paying the minimum payment, and they're going to pay the minimum payment for the rest of their lives. This gives students a different lens point in which to connect with the community. So now industry leaders are partnering with schools, which I've mentioned time and time again, that you should really be partnering up with industry, because they're going to be giving you tools and resources that make this real world connection for students. And when students have a real world connection, they're going to want to learn at that higher level and be able to acquire those skill sets. How much more exciting is it to say, I'm doing an internship with Facebook or Google or any of those types of programs, and now I'm coming out afterwards being able to have a job right off the bat. It's a pretty uncommon thing to have, and it really does yield itself quite nicely to providing students and putting students in a much more unique position for success by doing it this way. There is an example of this. Gabriel Rosa attended a PTech school in Brooklyn. Basically, he hacked into his system, and after the principal reprimanded him, he gave him a MacBook and he said, I want you to experiment on something more productive rather than destructive. Typically, it takes about 6 years for the program, but instead the program can be completed in 4 years, meaning that the student was the first person in their family to actually walk out with an associate's degree. And Gabriel Rosa, was hired at IBM after the internship and is actually currently a software developer. So we see these cases happening more and more, the more that these industry leaders get involved in the school site and giving these kiddos just such a wealth of knowledge. We see that the way that millennials are coming through, they're more about social change, they're more into philanthropy. They're really just dedicated to social change and political causes. As we can see with the election, there's been a higher percentage rate of people who voted in the early election than had voted 4 years ago in the election. And we can see that to the spike in millennials really entering the workforce. All the other people that are entering the workforce are really into social change. And that was something that we saw really early on in the 70s with the political movements and things that happened around that time frame. But millennials are really dedicated to that. They really like engaging in a more communal way with friends and family and work colleagues. They see the core issues the world needs to address, and they are working to solve them. And so that's why kind of the rise of startups happened. You would see this really big issue and you wanted to tackle it. And so this kind of just helps students have a better advantage. And if you look at any of these companies, AT&T, Microsoft, Cisco, American Airlines, they've been partnering as well with schools and providing these skill sets so that actually students come out winning. And as always, I'll always link all the articles and resources that I've used throughout this video. Why I like to bring up what IBM is doing to partner with schools is that for a long time, you're only seeing a certain type of person enter the software engineering field. You still will see that. Typically, it is a white male. Typically, they have certain social characteristics, or it will be someone of Asian ethnicity within the tech world. It's not as common to see women in the tech world. It's becoming a thing that we're working to close the ethnicity gap, but seeing African Americans, Hispanics, and women in the field of technology is very low. It's not a high occurring theme unless you're talking about your marketing departments and the other roles within the technology, but to be typically a software developer or working in that technology field, it's very low. The point of why I wanted to share this today is because there's been lots of talk, obviously, from remote learning and just this crazy world that we now live in this ever-going COVID endemic that schools are shutting down, countries are re-shutting down. It's just changing every single day, trying to avoid a virus that's basically unavoidable. There's no way to actually backtrack and to make everyone feel safe again. It's just we are where we are, and we just have to kind of accept that this is what it is. But I've mentioned in other videos the importance of connecting with industry. This is important because as much as the 4-year college degree was something so highly sought upon for millennials of our generation, college attendance rate has been on a steady decline for quite some time because people don't want to take on the financial risk that's associated with going to get a degree for something that now you can actually take take a mini course and come out with a certification. Google has now shifted some of their certification courses that you can now solely take online and from home. And so you start to see this more and more. So as schools, when you're realizing that you don't have the tools and resources that you need to set up these high school students, or even starting younger with younger students with success and pairing them with a mentor and just giving them the tools in their toolbox, that's where your industry comes in. We should have been speaking with them a long time ago, especially with big tech producers like IBM, like AT&T, like Microsoft. Microsoft has done a lot of other things with their TEALS program, and a TEALS is basically where they send a actual developer / technology type of person, software developer, into the classroom to teach computer science to high school students. So students are actually getting real world exposure and experience. They recognized that it was such a need that they wanted to be able to make sure that the students were getting the correct education, and that is very often a skill set that a lot of teachers don't have, which I've talked about in my computer science videos and some of the other things that I've discussed previously, which you can see up here. Microsoft, instead of just doing this PTech program that they've been doing for a long time, now they've launched their mentorship program. And the mentorship program is important for most everyone, but essentially for our at-risk students. And it's important because the at-risk students don't have the exposure that they need to have. So every single year we do a student startup crawl here in Austin. I was not the original person who started it, but I've been working with it for about 3 or 4 years now. And we reach out to the at-risk students and we call up the different startups around the community of Austin, and they do a startup crawl. So they actually crawl from business to business to business, hearing about the different roles, seeing what an office looks like. Sometimes it's the first time the students had ever stepped into downtown, and it's the first time that they've ever seen someone who is at a startup that's quite young. And then we also take them to more established businesses so they can kind of see the different levels of exposure. We do this for high school seniors, juniors and seniors. Sometimes though, at a junior and senior level, it might be too late to actually change your mind about where you're wanting to go to school or what you're wanting to do. Of course, it's never too late, but at that point, to be able to take a risk for these new roles sometimes is a little bit challenging. So pairing a student with a mentor while they go through this PTech program is really essential. How much cooler and how much easier is it for a student to really be able to understand what they're working towards and what the goals are if they're not working with someone as a mentor? I know that when I will work with teachers inside the classroom who have never taught computer science, and I'll also work with teachers outside of the classroom who are looking to leave the classroom or just helping them achieve different levels of success within their organizations, within their schools. Essentially, you're able to connect and build a deeper level of understanding and relationship with one another. It's basically a safety zone, and you just feel more comfortable when you have someone who's in your same field that you can kind of call upon for questions. You can only source so much information without having a real applicable skill set. What I would suggest for anybody who's watching or listening, and if you're doing this in your school sites and you're thinking, oh great, if you're an industry Edtech type of leader, I would recommend that you reach out to your local high schools, your local community, your school district. Tell them that you want to mentor with them and you would like to help, with some certain skill sets. By you helping them, it ends up helping you because these students come out with skill sets, the soft skills that are always missing, the collaboration, the communication, being able to get along with everybody, being like a self-starter. These are all really important things. Talking in front of a crowd. These are all just important skill sets that are needed for success. And you can always develop the hard skills. The training part, I don't want to say it's the easiest, but it's much easier to do the training hard skills than it is the soft skills. I know that millions of dollars are spent every single year at tech companies in which they are spending so much money every single year on soft skills development. And it's a much longer process for people to develop those soft skills. So if you're watching this, you're an industry Edtech leader, reach out to your local community, see how you can help, see how you can partner, see how you can mentor. Maybe you can offer even an internship. You need somebody to help with your marketing. You need somebody to help with certain things. This is your opportunity. It's more important if you can do it even so at a paid internship. It could be a very low dollar amount, something that you work out with the school districts, but at least volunteering that time
or mentorship with these students is very, very ideal. And teachers, if you're sitting there and you're like, oh, I really want my students to have more real world applicable skills, you can also reach out to your industry leaders. These companies, startup companies, all the way to large scale companies are wanting to reach out and give back. Everybody knows where they started and they want to be able to share their excitement with the younger generation. And so it ends up being a cyclical cycle. They help you, you help them, and it's a continuous from there. So my hat's off to IBM, AT&T, and some of the other companies that are here. Here, there's the Women in STEM program, STEM ecosystem, Trisha Berry at UT. She's doing an amazing job with that mentorship program. You have lots of people from Cisco that are part of the program as well. Wendy Howell, she's pretty amazing at that as well. But just connecting with these people is going to actually help with the excitement of your students. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, all resources are linked below. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment below. And until next time, I'll see you.
Once again, I want to thank you so much for following along on this journey. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment below. And until next time, bye.